Yeah. Hi, Arun. Hi, Reema. Sorry, I was speaking on mute as
Oh,
usual.
that's okay.
Good to see all of you all virtually.
Although your background is a lot better than ours, Reema.
My background is better.
Absolutely. It's all colorful and nice. I got green.
I think I like Preeti's background. She looks like she's in a hotel, and I hope she's in some resort somewhere. We all look like we're in office.
Yeah, I am actually on vacation. Not vacation, I'm working. Yeah, and this is a hotel.
Yeah, I would choose any day where Preeti is rather than where I am, but it's okay.
Exactly. So where are you vacationing / working?
I'm actually not. I'm in transit. I'm in Dubai, and then I'm headed out to US, the US.
Oh. So are people wearing masks in Dubai on the road?
Yes. Because of Dubai Expo, they have a floating population of more than 30,000 people who are transiting through the country, coming in and going out. So masks are mandatory.
So we're still awaiting James Thomas and Kavita to join. Kavita Kulkarni.
Yes.
Okay.
Reema, can you tilt your screen a little down? And
Better?
push it further. Yeah, push it further away.
1 second. Better?
Yes.
So anyone has any questions or thoughts on the pointers which have been said?
No, not really.
Okay. Mr. Soin, should I address you as Harsh Vendra, or?
No, just call me Harsh.
Harsh. HR has never been in the spotlight as it is right now, with the so-called war for talent.
Yeah, it is. It's very exciting.
What is happening, bud?
I think the startups and the captives are heating the market up. But the heating is not going to be very long, but it is right now a little bit heated up.
So actually, people are getting BMWs to join?
Yeah, I mean, the Bharat Pay is giving them a BMW bike, every engineer who drives. So that's true, but they only hire 100. The problem is that we have to hire like 20,000. If we start giving bikes, we'll be bankrupt.
But on an average, how much has salaries gone up for you all?
Not really, not too much. In fact, our average resource cost has remained stable because of the fact that there's a lot of hiring at the bottom of the pyramid also. So our average resource cost has not moved.
Actually, the question was conveniently positioned for him. The minute you ask average costs, like Harsh mentioned, average won't move too much because most of the IT services companies are extremely bottom heavy in terms of their hiring.
Pyramid structure.
But yeah, because of the pyramid structure, and that's pretty much given the cost arbitrage, right? Obviously. So the real dicey thing that's happening is when people are going behind lateral resources.
So lateral, how much has it gone up by?
I would at least
break it up. 0 to 5 years experience. What would it be?
Yeah, 5 years experience. I would assume that we have seen the needle movement by almost about 20-25% in terms of our hiring costs.
5 years experience.
Reema, I'm entering. Mr. James. Yeah.
James?
Hi everyone.
Hi,
Hello.
Hey James, this is Arun.
Hi Arun, how are you doing? Sorry,
Hey.
I had a bit of confusion. There was another calendar starting at 12:45, so I wasn't sure whether it's starting at 12:30 or 12:45. Sorry about that.
No, no.
Hi, sir. This is Swamijit from the CNBC team, sir.
Hi Somijit.
Hi, sir. Can you hear me, sir, properly? Hello?
Yes, I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Sir, I'll just need your 1 minute time before we start the interaction. Sir, if you could help me, sir, there is something coming on your screen, sir. Is it
Samit, I guess that's because of the quality. So do that cam setting
yeah,
first with it.
yeah. Okay. Sir, if you could see, there is an option called cam/mic. You can see there's a setting button.
Cam/mic. Yes, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so basic, and you can see there is, if you could select the option and see, there is an option called camera written.
Camera, yeah.
And if you could select show advanced option
Yeah.
and select full high definition 1080p.
Okay. I have selected high
Yeah.
definition.
Sir, I think there is a glitch in your webcam, sir. Which I can you see it, sir, yourself? There's a lot of move.
Can you do a background selection, James? In the sense, you have these artificial props at the back, right?
No, sir, that will look very unreal, sir. So, what we'll do, sir, James, sir, can you sit somewhere else? Is there a possible like if it's okay? I think this is an issue with the settings, sir. With the with your webcam. So what we will do, like, go to your left a little bit, left, yeah, and push the camera also, sir, like a laptop also, yeah. So basically, I want you to cover the table, yeah. Perfect, sir. So we'll use this. So it will be it's fine, sir. This is fine. We can work with this. Sir, can you tilt your laptop screen a bit down and push it further away from yourself? Yeah, yeah. Perfect, sir. Perfect. So we'll use this frame. Just give a minute. Kavita ma'am has joined, and then we'll start. Hi, Kavita ma'am. Can you hear me? Hello. Hi, Kavita ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. I'm Swamijit from the CNBC team. I'll be helping you with the tech check, ma'am. I want if you're using a laptop, right? I think you're using a laptop.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So can you tilt your laptop screen a little down and push it further away from you and center yourself in the middle of the screen? Yeah, perfect. Perfect. This is fine, ma'am. And can you push it a little further away, a little more further away from yourself? Ma'am, do you have earphones? I think you have a problem hearing us out. Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, can you tilt your screen a little down, little more down, and center yourself a little on your right? If you could push yourself a little on your right. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine, ma'am. And you can select, there is an option called cam/mic.
Yeah.
Select the camera option and
Yes.
go to show advanced options
Yes.
and select 1080p. This will
Select
give us the 1080p. There's an option called 1080p after you select the show advanced options.
in camera. There's no option. It says integrated webcam. In camera resolution, there is
Yeah,
full high definition, standard, and low.
yeah, the full high definition. Select the full high
Yeah.
definition. Yeah, Thank you, ma'am. It's done. Okay. Before we begin, sir, Arun sir, I think your frame has been shifted. If you could tilt it a little down the laptop screen.
Tilt it down.
Yeah, the laptop screen. Yeah. Perfect, sir. Perfect. Okay. Rima, all the guests have joined. We can start.
Okay. We'll
Yeah.
just do a quick round of introduction
Yeah.
before we.
Sure. Just give me a so hi everyone. First of all, thank you all for joining. Before thank first of all thank you for the time and for us to join here. And before we start, I just need so my I want the best feed out of everybody. So if you are while you are speaking, if you could help us muting the mic so that it will avoid having the echo. So, for example, if Rima is coming to Kavita ma'am, the others can mute, and when the others are speaking, then they can keep themselves mute, and then coming to Harshvardhan sir, so others can keep the mic. This will help us get the best feed. And apart from that, I think the frame is fine. So, Rima, we can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. No, I'm ready. I just
Yeah.
want to introduce everyone in the panel so we
Yeah.
get comfortable. So we have Mr. Arun Rao from Birla Soft, Harsh Soin of Tech Mahindra, Preeti Kaul of Upgrad, James Thomas of SAP, and Kavita Kulkarni is also kindly joined in, and she's from Varrock Engineering. So hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a perfectly diverse mix today. James, before we start this, start the recording, do you want to just quickly tell us and set the context for today's conclave?
Yeah, sure, Rima. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think hi Harsh, hi Pallavi, hi Kavita, hi Arun. We have all been in various sessions like this, so I'm sure this is nothing new. I think it's all about looking at the current trends and how digitization in the HR front is shifting the game. Some new facets are coming in on the human skills and the balancing of technology, digitization, and the human aspects to how we manage people, how we enable people, etc. So I think the context, let's keep it freewheeling. All of you are stalwarts, and we have been in several sessions together in the past. So I'm sure there can be a rich conversation that all of us can have together. So welcome, and I really enjoy all the sessions with all of you. So look forward to the interactions. Back to Rima.
Thank you, James. Let's kickstart it. And as James said, we can make it freewheeling. If anyone wants to add a point, even if the question's not directly addressed to you, please feel free to chip in. This is a recording, so we have that flexibility and we can use it to our advantage. I'm going to start. Can I start? Is there a sting or anything? Soumya?
So you can start, Rima.
Okay.
No, you can start. This is a pre-recorded thing. Yeah.
Okay. As we move towards digital business ecosystem where technology takes center stage, we cannot overlook the role of people in the transformation process. In fact, successful digital transformation hinges equally around managing resources strategically. The unprecedented change driven by technology disrupting business models and the changing workplace experience brings HR at the heart of digitization, making them a strategic partner in creating a pool of a more agile workforce, leading to better business performance. Hello and welcome to Industry Knowledge Exchange Conclave HR Forum, brought to you by CNBC TV 18, powered by SAP. The topic for today is value proposition for HR digitization and getting it right. Introducing my esteemed panelists, we've got Arun Dinakar Rao, the Chief People Officer at Birla Soft, Harsh Soin, the Global Chief People Officer and Head of Marketing at Tech Mahindra, Ms. Preeti Kaul, People and Culture Head at Upgrad, James Thomas, Vice President, Success Factors India at SAP, and Ms. Kavita Kulkarni, CHRO, Varrock Engineering Private Limited, and I am Rima Tendulkar, the moderator for today from CNBC TV 18. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. And at the onset, I must say that all of you all have done such a remarkable job. I'm sure very few organizations were prepared to handle remote working prior to the pandemic. And yet, the HR division at your companies who brought these overnight changes in the company policy to align with the needs of the moment. So thank you and congratulations on a job extremely well done. Harsh, just want to start the discussion with you on the first point about building an agile digital HR platform. When we say an agile HR, what exactly are we talking about? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. When we're talking about HR or agile HR, Rima, we're really talking about a people function that can deal with the unpredictability, can deal with what's happening on the macro trends, and respond, faster than what is really what people expect. Now, when I talk about macro trends, I talk about unpredictability that's going to happen around. I'm talking about unprecedented automation that we see. I'm talking about the gig economy that we are all faced with, and of course the changing employee expectations. So really, being agile is being on the move and making sure that the response is in line with what's expected, and even faster than that, because clearly, as people function, we are now living our purpose and values by translating the behaviors into the leadership team and our associates, and especially as I call it the now normal, which is really different from what it was earlier. It is imperative to be agile. While earlier, agile organizations were those who would actually outperform. Today, if you're not agile, it's going to be a matter of survival. So, agility in the people function means being dynamic, not being rigid, whether it pertains to org design, whether it pertains to policies, processes, and response rates. So, I think the pandemic has taught HR professionals or the people function to look at issues with different lenses, to look at issues with different perspectives, and not really on one perspective, and of course not jargonize the whole thing. So that really is, in my mind, an agile organization or an agile people function. And I want to define one word that really says it all. That's extreme ownership.
Very well defined. Harsh, thank you very much for that. So it's imperative and necessary for survival to have an agile HR. Preeti, what are the challenges that an agile HR can solve that a traditional HR could not have?
If I just specifically talk about the last 18 months, I think the biggest change factor that came into the HR team was, while we quintessentially are defined as the people team, but what Harsh just mentioned is the ability to pivot with every single new dynamic that came into the workplace. On one side, you had business continuity. On the other side, you had to look after the emotional and actually the physical well-being of your employees. I think balancing those two things, whereas you are traditionally trained that business comes first, communities, business, and then your employees. I think the whole shift primarily was around rolling with the punches and dealing with the ambiguity and uncertainty while you're trying to keep everything together. I think the biggest anchor in the last 18 months for the HR team has been to keep an emotionally steady team delivering business results. And that involved, people calling up in the night and saying, I'm bored and I want to get out of home. So we've had those kind of, reach outs as well, which probably, while we were equipped, but we really had not paid that much attention. Just anchoring talent and rallying them around the whole purpose of the organization and saying everything is normal while we knew that everything's not normal. That was one of the biggest, I think, challenges that the HR team had to really deal with.
Hey, if I could kind of add something, Preeti. Your question was what, and that get me kind of thinking about what can agile HR organizations do. I think, and I'm trying to pick on what Harsh said initially and what Preeti said. I think the biggest thing for a minute, if you take agile and equate it to nimble, historically, HR organizations were conservative organizations. They had to demonstrate proof of concept. They needed to get multiple stakeholder acceptances and then kind of go ahead and do an initiative. And by the time they brought the initiative to the table, I think the scenario would have changed dramatically. At least in today's context, the rate of change is so immense that the time to react is very limited. So one piece is that, I think, but more fundamental with what agile HR organizations can do is in terms of the reaction time. They are much faster. So their ability to sense what is happening in the marketplace, and the work organizations also symbolic of the marketplace. So understanding what's happening, keep that pulse check on, break it into fractals, take problems in smaller measures, and kind of solve them in those smaller bits, which in a typical agile framework would be what an MVP is. So you create a minimum viable product. Similarly, the HR offerings now are becoming, they are addressing microcosms rather than a large organization piece. Okay, so looking at bits and pieces and the ability to take risk. So hitherto the HR leader would be somebody who would typically have risk averseness as one of the traits, that the person has to make sure that all boxes are ticked and all that stuff, while compliance is still there, which the people need to be worried about and make sure they are all green there. But the ability to get a solution which is not fully proven and tested into your organization and learn through those early mistakes and get a better version on, I think that's something that HR organizations today are demonstrating, and that's symbolic of an agile HR organization.
No, absolutely. So that's an agile HR. James, what about in digital HR? How is technology helping HR today? What have been the benefits that it has yielded, whether it's in terms of your employee satisfaction or the customer experience?
Yeah, thank you, Rima. I think Harsh, Preeti, and Arun did allude to the agile HR and the need to stay in the context in a rapidly disrupting workforce of today and the future. From a digitization perspective, there are two or three clear trends that ties in with this. The first one is the balance that is needed between standardization, which digitization and automation provides, with personalization. I think Harsh did mention the flexibility that is needed in the way we manage and engage with people. So the first thing is this digital tools today try to provide that balance between standardizing the processes, standardizing various aspects of employee engagement and experience with a real-time, personalized, flexible way of how we need to understand our employees, our people, and how do we engage with them in real time on a daily basis. The second aspect is there is a certain connectedness coming into our lives. And that is across processes in an organization. Earlier, we used to look at talent acquisition as a separate process, performance as a separate process, compensation as a separate process. Today, there is an interconnectedness coming in the way we hire employees or hire people to the way we manage them through the life cycle of their journey in an organization. So there is an interconnectedness or a connectedness across processes that's clearly coming in, and digitization is really paving the way for that interconnectedness. The third aspect, which Rima, you did, is what you asked me, is this element of experience and engagement. Today's generations, whether it is millennials or the Zs or even the alphas who are yet to come into the workforce, there's a huge empowerment view that they have on what is their purpose, what do they want to do in life, what do they want to do in their careers, what do they want to do with a job. There is a redefinition happening to this engagement experiences that all of us cherish, or people in our organizations cherish, and digital tools need to go to employees in the way information is being available to them as information, as decisions that they can take with it. So it's no longer employees going to applications. It is applications reaching out to employees in the same way. We get up in the morning and look at our mobiles. What is that WhatsApp message that I need to read? Or what's that Facebook or Instagram picture I need to look at? There is HR applications today are reaching out to employees, and there is a certain empowered, engaged way in which applications are intuitively, in a guided manner, enabling employees to take smarter decisions. So that's where I would give a digitization perspective to this.
So HR applications are empowering employees in their professional journey, as well as emotionally keeping them stable in what has been the last 18 months, extremely difficult times. Kavita, how do you think in your organization an agile HR or a digital HR has added to enterprise value? Have you been able to tie HR to business outcomes?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so when you talk of the pandemic and COVID and what organizations as well as HR needs to be doing when we speak of agile, the one thing that comes to my mind is designing the work practices. So when we say design hybrid, what is it that we did at Varroc when we say people, go back to your first job? The one thing that mattered to you the most was who's going to take me out for lunch, where do I buy the coupon from, and who is it that's I'm going to accompany to sit at the lunch table. So similarly in hybrid, maybe look at design thinking as a process. Go back from an employee's perspective, what is it that the employee is looking for? So the employee says in hybrid, I don't want 1 hour calls backed by another hour's call, backed by another hour call, but maybe 45 minutes. So send out an email. HR thinks from an employee's perspective, sends out an email that one of the good best practices or good practice is have 45-minute calls and 15 minutes for yourself. They want good work-life balance. You need to replicate the water cooler chats with some kind of online coffee chats, and you need to enable it. So when we say you need to design, or you need to be you need to have some foresight and you need to be agile, it also means that your benefits or your practices, HR needs to be agile to relook, go back to your HR policy, look at those and say, these policies are not going to work in the hybrid world, and we need to enable employees to be able to work, be productive in a hybrid world. Now, using digitization, what is it that Varroc has done? I think Varroc has just augmented the use of digital within the organization, leave alone HR, but I would say across all functions. So it's easy on certain areas, like you have people have joined online, they have quit online as well. We've also had training which has gone up by 3 times. In fact, people no longer is skill training an issue. Earlier we would send emails after emails saying, you've agreed to attend this training program and please make sure that you're going to be there, and this is reminder 1 and this is reminder 2. But now with the double disruption in place, where you have COVID on one side and on the other side you have automation, digitization, AI, you have robotics in place, people are of course worried that standard routine jobs will anyway be taken over, and will anyway be taken over by machines. And the World Economic Forum anyway says that there will be newer jobs created, but the older jobs will be defunct. So with this in mind, I don't have to send follow-up mails for training programs. Digital does the work for me, and people realize that your skills have to be upgraded if you have to be relevant to the organization. So I think digital has helped in many ways change the mindset, and it has been very abrupt, it has been very sudden, and it has been for the better. Another piece around digitization is, earlier we would have to go and put it into the budget and say, this is what we would want to spend. But now I don't think there's even a question when we say we need X for training, or we need X amount to be spent on some digitization systems. I think finance along with HR we've been able to get a lot more capex and opex sanctions thanks to COVID. Yeah.
Hey Preeti, if I can just supplement on the digital HR piece, I am extremely passionate about that space. I think what's happened in these last 18 months is that organizations initially felt they were under tremendous pressure, and there was this imaginary Damocles sword on the GNA optimization and stuff like that. So processes start getting looked at, reviewed. Um, what became a renewed part of institutional DNA was lean thinking. So start looking for wastages and get rid of them, and look at automation as probably a panacea in many of the HR processes. Okay, one needs to realize that there is a cost of optimization and an ROI that needs to kick in to justify institutional investment and prioritizing them. But in general, I have seen that with the scope that's available in terms of digitization, I think those HR organizations which have been I would say prudent and brave in order to challenge status quo in the way business was being run inside the organization. I think significant work has happened in terms of fine tuning, perhaps throwing out old processes and embracing new ones. So whether these are part of specific customized process area solutions, or whether the entire integrated HR approach as a platform, I think that continuum has become available to HR organizations. And like I said, those HR organizations and those leaders who have had a chance to take bets, I think they have moved the needle significantly in terms of bringing in technology flavors to the way processes are delivered to business today.
So companies adopting an integrated HR platform, perhaps are in the winning position in the coming new normal that we are. Kavita, you spoke about the hybrid model, and I think that's another big question, right? What the post-pandemic future of work is going to look like. Some companies have made headlines telling their staff to return to office. Some others for switching to a fully remote, working. Majority of the companies is somewhere in the middle. Uh, Harsh, in your assessment, will enterprises switch back to business as usual mode after the pandemic, or do you think this flexibility of working from home and office continue as an option? How do you see this play out?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Rima. I think clearly, while the pandemic has been a social calamity, it's been a blessing for some things, like, for example, diversity, inclusivity, and the flexibility that it's given us and shown us new ways of working. In my view, the changes that the pandemic or the post-pandemic scenario has brought in are here to stay. But it's not about working from home. It's not about working from office. I think it's about working from anywhere. Uh, that is here to stay because it's given us a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things. More importantly, the way we do things have changed. Imagine the rise of the gig worker. Uh, Today, we have thousands of gig workers who are able to be employed for a particular job, whether it's a few weeks, a few months, or a couple of weeks. Uh, we have a startup that we have actually spun off, which actually has gig workers on the platform, about 100,000 gig workers, and it's a new way of doing things. While the initial euphoria was great of working from home, we clearly saw that it brought with it a lot of issues, especially in a country like India, where you have issues of connectivity, logistics, and even the fact that six members to a house. But what it's done is open our eyes on something so important like mental wellness. So I think the alternative working model or the working model from anywhere is here to stay. Uh, it's also brought with it a lot of new ways of working, where some of us have seen the advantages, but in the same lens, I would say a word of caution that memories are short, and great agile organizations will be those that learn from what's happened in the pandemic, but use the learning to be a caring organization, to use the learning, uh, and while the alternative or the work from anywhere continues, we have to make sure that we live our larger purpose and the values that we stand for. So, to answer your question, it's here to stay. Yes, it will change. The modalities will change, right? You hear some people say we'll get all our workforce back, but even if they come back, they have now seen something different. Organizations have seen something different, which means we always thought productivity is linked to who is sitting next to us. We always thought leadership is about control. Today we know it's about resilience, it's about extreme ownership. And I think that's here to stay too.
No, absolutely. I agree with your point about the advantages of work from anywhere. I think caregivers, disabled people, parents who've been locked out of the workforce could actually make a comeback because of the flexibility that work from home has provided. And according to you, work from anywhere is going to be the new mantra for enterprises going ahead.
Now, I just want to add one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say that technology was always considered a bane. That it shortened span of attention. It made people, kids really hooked on to video games and television. But remember, technology was the savior in the pandemic. And the way forward that I see, Rima, is that a high tech enabled approach or a high tech process to deliver a high touch, experience. And human experiences will still be important, but they'll be delivered through a high tech approach rather than a face to face only.
Arun, Harsh made an important point. The productivity up until now was judged on who is sitting next to you, who is watching over you. So there is that mindset, right? That if you come to office every day, you're present from 9 to 5, it will send a signal. But people still have that fear that, while a company may say they're comfortable with hybrid working or work from anywhere, they still get that fear that if I spend less face time in office, I will be discriminated against. A bit of that proximity bias. Arun, how do we ensure that doesn't happen? What is the role HR can play and how?
I think let's go back to an age-old saying: "Proof of the pudding is in eating." I think let's take inspiration from that adage, and let's look at what HR can do. I think the 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 fear that people have, if they have, is not unfounded, because in the past, people who opted for flexibility, people who dialed down, people who tried to work out an arrangement of work remotely, were often, or they often saw themselves outside the circle of influence, which had its own repercussions in terms of the reward apportionment from time to time. Scenario today is different. Scenario today is different because this is becoming an institutional working arrangement, where as part of the work design, remote working will become a much more larger and integral piece of how you will manage your workforce. And therefore it is incumbent on HR leaders and HR organizations to work with business to make sure that the processes and policies that impact rewards and recognition, that impact the way teams collaborate, the way, let's say, work packets are delivered, the way projects get integrated, those basic processes need to take into cognizance the presence of this remote workforce. the role of HR is to ensure that we are the conscience keepers. We need to make sure that not only is this in letter embedded in the various policies, we actually live by them. And the real thing, the real test will be when the rubber hits the road. Then when you actually sit back and review how you have managed the work experience and employee experience of people who have worked remotely vis-a-vis people who are in office, I think that's where the test will be. So in my mind, I think make sure that you have tweaked and tailored all your protocols, policies, programs. Second, make sure that you have those checkpoints with people and businesses which ensure, or at least which reassure you that the spirit of these working arrangements are being lived up to. And finally, when you actually sit and do a full-fledged business review, when you have rewards that are being distributed in the organization, you make sure that people who are working remotely are not at a disadvantage. I just want to, while this was not part of the question that you asked me, I think there is this social need in people that organizations will get a chance to fulfill when people get back to work. I think, therefore, the kind of workforce that you will have will be a extremely hybrid. You use the word hybrid, but I think it'll be a few set of people who will want to work permanently from home, and there'll be a few set of people who will want to work permanently from office as well, because for them that social quotient is very high, and you will need to have a work arrangement that will kind of address that. And then there will be this floater kind of stuff who will want to work partly at home and partly at office. So therefore, the challenge for HR people is actually to make sure that your entire toolkit of policies and programs take care of this very, very differentiated set of needs in the workforce.
The line which sticks, Arun, is HR, the conscience keepers of an organization. Preeti, everyone agrees that there will be a few people in the workforce who will opt to work completely from home. Do you think it's harder to build a strong team remotely? Do you think it negatively impacts the office culture? And how do you circumnavigate that if this is going to be the new reality?
Sure. So Rima, I think last 18 months, we plotted it across two axes. One was, of course, the digital capability, and the other one was the leadership capability. What Harsh and what Arun, Kavita, everyone mentioned. I think the biggest challenge all of us would have faced is orienting your middle managers and upwards towards the whole construct of not having their team physically sitting in offices. But last 18 months on, leadership capability, the receptivity and acceptance that times have changed. I think everyone across the organizations has actually matured and really been very, very empathetic. I think last 18 months at an emotional level, COVID's been unkind to everybody. So everyone's had a very, very high emotional quotient around how they need to run their workplaces. Leaders who were seen as very, tight-lipped, at an arm's length, operating at an arm's length, we've seen huge transformations. And I think that was one of the successes that we experienced out of these 18 months that we had. In terms of hybrid, as we loosely call it, I think that will largely be also driven by what kind of business results are you expecting. I think rather than just leaving the flexibility to folks who would want to come to office or who would want to stay at their homes, or would want to navigate, or would want to do a gig kind of an arrangement. All of us, I think, across businesses are learning which teams are genuinely best off working remotely because there are more individual contributors there and all of that. While that is the reality, I think what has become more real in the last 18 months, again, which is what I've experienced in UpGrad also, is people genuinely have started to rally around what is the purpose of the work that they're doing. I mean, we know all of us as HR professionals actually say purpose of the organization. What are you getting out of the work that you're doing? I think that reality has sunk home a lot more in the last 18 months. right from your Gen Z to, the millennials, everyone actually is looking at what are they contributing to beyond, getting their salaries and work satisfaction and so on. So every single employee in the organization has seen a lot of change in how they look at their work, not just as a piece of their 8 or 10 hours of their life. Connectivity tools, collaboration tools, what Haj said, what Arun said, what Kavita said, I think all of us have adapted to that. And the last 18 months and even going forward, it's only going to get more intense. Tools that are available right now in the market, are they talking to each other or not? That's a different discussion altogether. But the usage of those to rally the entire organization around the culture and the values that you want to drive hasn't really been that arduous a journey as we thought it would be, because we genuinely believe we have to do a culture workshop. We have to get the leaders to address everybody in person. We have to take everybody out for a party and, mingle. And that's how engagement gets created. But I don't think a lot of those barriers and those conceptions have gotten broken in the last 18 months because people have genuinely adapted to the virtual ecosystem and virtual connectedness. And everyone's actually made an effort to take time off to think that this is very important.
If I may just add to what Preeti said, I think, and I'm picking two words that you used. You used office culture. I think it is not about office culture. It's about what Preeti said about organizational culture. They're two different things, incidentally. And even if I'm the bad man in this group of six, I think while some kinds of work, like, I'm kind of reinforcing what Preeti said, some kinds of work can be delivered from home without too much of an impact. But talking to my peers, looking at how things have evolved over the last year and a half in my own organization, and doing a pulse check generally with fellow professionals, I have realized that while remote working and whatever it stands for is great for keeping the lights on kind of stuff, I think wherever your solution kind of begs you to bring in an X factor in your solutioning, I think organizations will need to find better collaboration tools or get people into huddles, at whether it's in the office or elsewhere, to tap into that infinity potential of humans, the people in the organization, right? I think that's something that work designs will need to talk to. So therefore, I personally believe that while there are platforms today, I think collaboration tools themselves, I think, need to reach a very, very different level of maturity if that need of organizations need to be kind of substituted. The other thing which I have found it extremely difficult is to ensure that the new hires in the organization, they are able to relate to the cultural elements of the organization. While you might be able to get certain work done out of these people, do they actually relate to what the company stands for? What is the right accepted way of behavior? What are the values and stuff like that? I think it's not about the workshops alone. It's also about being able to experience experience it through role modeling and stuff like that. I think somewhere the remote working piece has taken a toll on that, and therefore I'm speaking from my own experience. I do not know if this is an industry reality. I think infant mortality in terms of the early attrition, let's assume you take about a year or so from joining, I think companies might have seen an uptick because people are not getting connected emotionally to organizations. It's a very tactical relationship that people enter in. And one of us did say that, they joined remotely, they quit remotely as well, right? Without actually building that emotional connect with the organization, with their peers, with their managers. I think that's something that organizations need to kind of find a way out.
Just to add, let me just come in here just to add what Preeti and Arun also mentioned. In an organization like ours, which is like manufacturing, it's very difficult to say people in R&D or people in corporate can work from home. But if you're in the plant and if you're standing near the machine and you are working in shifts, I'm sorry, but work from home option is not available to you. So we do have managers come in and say, this is it's creating haves and have nots. So how is it that HR communicates this effectively? Just like someone earlier mentioned, saying if the job can be digitally enabled, and if you have managerial capability, then yes, that is a role that can be done from everywhere else. But I think when I look at the future, I definitely see two trends when you have this dichotomy of haves and have-nots. I definitely see, gig working has anyway come in, but I do see the compensation of employees um, vary from where you are actually working. One of the components is definitely transportation. The other component can be maybe canteen. So at the ground level, at the operational level, in the future, in an Indian context, when you do have organizations which have different types of employees, you will have difference in compensation. Similar when you look at skills, when you look at highly skilled, why should this person only be working for me? Why can't he work 4 hours for me and 4 hours maybe for some other organization or freelance? So I do see again in compensation with the training hours and the spend on training. In the CTC, you will also have training as a component. The spend that the organization is doing towards training will come up there as one line item, where you have basic DA, HRA. You'll also say training. There are some changes that one will see even from the compensation side, which we really haven't spoken about. But when you say hybrid, and when you say work from home and some people working sitting there, these are some changes that I also see. So what is it that an organization continues to do? The organization in the past few, and I think all of us have done it, I think we continue to speak about the purpose of the organization. For us, it is perform at the rate of change. So it just says perform, and then you have at the rate and change. And I think it came out at the marketing team did a fantastic job. COVID hit and we had this new tagline. But I think if you are at home and if the only support system that you have is your laptop and you don't have colleagues around you, the more communication that you get from the organization binds you towards the company. Just like Arun said, you don't have that connect to the company. But in the past few months, what I have seen is organizations doing a complete overhaul on communication, on what is it that you're communicating. Especially, you can even communicate what you don't know. So if you say COVID is around the corner and we have ex OEMs who are giving us this business and we still don't know these people are happy that you are giving them transparent information. So the connect in the organization improves.
Harsh, clearly the role of HR has only expanded. They have to build the emotional connect with their employees, making sure they're valued. They have to make sure their employees are in tune with the ethos of the company. They have to have the right tools to make sure that there is no discrimination between working from home and office. Right productivity tools are there, right? Tools to understand the kind of work people are doing. In a way, they have to act as mentors for the employees in their professional journey. And plus, of course, they have to manage remote working. Sometimes employees are working in separate time zones. So clearly, it's important that we leverage technology to HR functions. You briefly spoke about digital HR. But could you tell us how HR today is leveraging the benefits of, say, cloud software? What are the other tools that you're using?
Yeah, thanks, Rima. I want to actually come to the same thought.
Sorry, this was for James. Harsh, sorry, this question was actually for James.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it was a fascinating discussion going around. So one area very clearly, which I think Harsh, Arun, Preeti, and Kavita alluded to, is this aspect of HR practices and policies and the way they needs to be redefined to a lot of things that are changing around us, which is forced by the pandemic and COVID. So that calls for digitization at a platform that has the robustness to provide those flexible mechanisms in the way you want to consider different groups of employees or different employees uniquely. So there is a certain aspect as a platform provider that we are looking towards enabling HR practitioners and leaders and the larger HR community with in facilitating that process seamlessly of how can you really build a very flexible model. I think Kavita mentioned, perform at the rate of change. So if there is anything that's happening, it's this rapid change. And how do you have digitization enable and facilitate that change? So that is one clear dimension that is emerging with the digitization dimension. The second, I think, is what Harsh alluded to when he said, technology is becoming a lifeline, it's getting more savvy, but human aspects. He mentioned well-being and mental health as a key area that has emerged, which it is not that it wasn't there before, right? We all had the work-life balance challenges, work-life harmonization challenges, stresses, pressures of work, all of that. The pandemic and the last 1.5 years have just brought it to the forefront. A lot of such human elements that are critical in the way we want to re-engineer and redefine workplace and workforces, in the way we enable organizations to be more innovative, more productive, and achieve a new direction to the way the world is moving. It also has new elements coming in like sustainability, other aspects like climate change, what each employee is looking for. Now, hence, listening is becoming a key component. Now, how can technology platforms listen better, right? There is AI, ML, chatbots, robotic process automation. A lot of those technology facets are bringing in an element of how do you listen deep and across to your employees, and are there patterns or messages towards the culture that you can derive from those listening cohorts that technology and platforms can enable? And then how do you really get smarter with HR interventions that are needed to guide employees, teams, leaders, groups, businesses in a very different direction? So there is this pull and pressure coming in. On one side, you have the standardization and the need for flexibility in practices and policies. And on the other side, you have the human element of all these aspects that you need to listen to employees deeply and then absorb that in redefining your culture. And I think Harsh, again, mentioned a wonderful term, extreme ownership. As you go hybrid, as you work remote and in offices, the ownership element of each employee, it's not just at leadership or at the CEO level that ownership is any more important. Ownership is actually percolating down to the last mile worker as well. So that's a fundamental shift that's happening in terms of how we need to embrace the new environment that is reshaping itself. And digitization today, as a platform provider, we are trying to span across these spectrums in the softer aspects as well as in the harder aspects of how we need to deal with it.
Okay, ownership, that is an important aspect to it. Talking about employees, Preeti, as the talent landscape becomes increasingly competitive, what is the approach to competition, particularly in acquiring and retaining top talent? In the last 18 months, so many of you all have said, we've seen employees join in COVID remotely and they've also quit remotely. So, can you talk about how agile digital HR can help in retaining and hiring people?
Sure. So, Rima, I think one of the things that possibly we didn't talk about is at this point in time, while workforce designs and, processes, tools, systems, platforms that we're using need to be connected and the experience design. But what has happened in the last 18 months is a lot of personalization. Because the individual needs of certain employees, I know we were doing segmentation and we were doing offerings as an HR team. We were providing solutions as an HR team, but we were still, I remember Arun saying at the beginning that we are a conservative bunch. We try to do POCs and then bring the solution and get everyone on board. Other than the fact that we had to move very fast, what has helped us as an organization has been actually super personalization, hyper personalization around the offerings and what we were, putting on the table. I don't think the workforce has gotten more demanding, but what has happened is that the needs have actually become very, very diverse. You can't have a cookie cutter approach and say, I've just put up this one system and I expect it to service, 10,000 people across 4 markets for me. While we still did have differentiation between markets and geographies, what has become more granular and has helped us is actually segmenting population and personalizing services, offering systems, policies, tools. Now, the simple thing that we spoke of, Kavita spoke of, com design structures, the way we do it, someone who's completely working from home, someone who's your transient population working for 4 hours. So for us as an HR team, what worked well and in our favor was looking at the individual drivers of the segments and our demographics and actually designing and rolling out real time what changed. So today I'm a bachelor, tomorrow I'm married, and suddenly, my mother-in-law is unwell with COVID and with some other complications. So the biggest driver at that point in time for me is, what is the organization going to offer me in terms of medical benefits? And 6 months down the line, my family is doing well, but now, the baby's on the way. So I think what we have relied on is broad-based frameworks, which is a big shift that we saw. And a lot of, as I think I'm again going to stress on that, is the purpose and why, what is your work amounting to, other than the fact that it's giving you money, it's giving you career progression. I think the larger purpose of what you're trying to deliver and what you're working towards has become very, very apparent in the last 18 months amongst the workforce, no matter which generation they belong to.
Just one point, Reena, just talk about the fact that, while all this is there, one thing to understand HR and people professionals are the way HR go along with that. Whether it is inductions, whether it is compensation, whether it is performance management. If we follow what we used to do pre-pandemic,
Samajit, are you there? Harsh sir, your voice is not clear.
Okay, let me try it different. Is it better now? Is it better now?
No, sir, your internet, I think, is giving a problem, sir.
Just give me a minute.
Okay, while he's solving for his internet, I just wanted to kind of use the airtime and tell you 2 things. I think how HR should use technology is to hyper personalize. We heard that word a couple of times about personalization. I think what we need to do is try to find those new common denominators, because one of the things that we need to always look out for is comparison, internal equity, and stuff like that. So if you are able to change the narrative based on which we derive these internal equities, I think we'll be better served to look at those smaller work groups, because broad brush approaches aren't going to work. The other place where HR can use technology in a big time is in terms of doing stuff in a more predictive manner. There's enough technology and platforms available today that allow you to use a little bit of past data and use those parameters that come out of that and predict what is likely to happen in the future. And therefore, if you have those set of predictive analytics kind of baked into how you manage data, we can actually move away from being reactive to most scenarios as they emerge, and probably be better prepared, or sometimes take proactive action as well. So you will be able to not only put those stitches in time and save your time, but you'll also appear, and you will help your organization appear to be in much better control of how the future unfolds.
Arun, any examples of how at your organization you've used predictive analysis in an HR role?
Oh yes, absolutely. I'll take the most common element of employees leaving, attrition. Right, attrition is one of the biggest things that happen. So hitherto, what used to happen was somebody resigns, then you look at the criticality, and then you kind of start negotiating with the person. Something that most HR leaders don't like, but will often find the gun to their head to do something on those lines. Then organizations moved one step further ahead, tried to build drag status based on what managers felt. Okay, so some organizations were absolutely bespoke. Let the thing happen and we'll take care. From there, they moved the needle to manager-led rack status. And at Birlasoft, we have been working on a couple of platforms which has helped us build a predictive analytics tool around predicting potential attrition, which actually now drives the entire rack status discussion. And while the last 2-3 months have been it's been a kind of a mayhem. But prior to that, we kind of did fairly well in terms of that piece of modeling and taking some preemptive action in terms of identifying at-risk people, kind of looking at where there is a potential situation that is likely to emerge, and within the framework of policies and within the framework of institutional decision making, plug those before the instance actually happens. So I think we did have fair bit of success in controlling the narrative on that front, because we were able to use those predictive analytics tool. But I also, in the same breath, I want to admit that the last 3 months have been a little bit more crazy than what I had thought it to be.
Well, there is a scope of.
Do you guys hear me now? Is it better?
No, Harsh, unfortunately, your audio and your internet connection is still quite bad. Even your frame is static and blurry. Do you want to log off and log in?
Let me do that. Let me do it.
Kavita, in the meanwhile, would you like to share some examples of how you are using digital tools to bring about hyper personalization?
So there is a lot of personalization. I would say even standard approaches of the past, where someone would come and say, I have a better offer, and the person would just be said, okay, 3 months is your notice period and that's what you have to serve, compared to today, where we are personalizing these discussions. And if the person has a very niche skill, or if he's extremely important, we are taking a lot of exceptions. That's a huge change that I have seen in 3 decades of my experience. Now, coming to digital, the change that we are seeing when we say chat bots, we had chat bots for induction. And if somebody requires, where do I find X policy, A policy, we had a chat bot. Now, with the pandemic, we actually went reverse. We stopped it because we said the person needs to speak to somebody face to face, and we would have inductions online where the person could reach out. We've, of course, re-institutionalized it right now. The other standard processes that we have when it comes to policies around claims, with COVID anyway, travel was all stopped. No one really traveled given the pandemic. But when we saw people were claiming for a lot of digital appliances, we tweaked our policies also around reimbursement for such kind of claims. Now, where does digital come in? Digital comes in where you look at the old processes, and when you say this is how you are actually working, but now you need to use digital tools. So right from induction to your exit process to confirmation processes to I think the whole host of what any standard ERP could give you. Not just us, but many other organizations have gone through the whole hog to implement digital. We also implemented during COVID a job evaluation exercise, which is huge, and typically it takes anywhere between 8 to 9 months, but we were able to complete it, all of it digitally. So when you say job evaluation exercise, there isn't enough time here for me to explain what it means, but typically you look at all the jobs of an organization, you sit down with the individual, you understand his role, and then you say this is the best organization structure that a company can have. But we've used digital here, We've done e-meetings. We've had JDs carved out. We've had those approved, and finally a new organization structure moving from a grade to a band-based or a role-based organization structure. So as I said, COVID has only augmented the use of digital to all of the HR processes. And I don't think there's a single process where we say, okay, we can't use this, so stop it. I don't think any practice or policy or there's nothing that's been stalled. In fact, it's only improved using digital tools. We've all just opened our minds to using digital to be able to move forward.
I don't
James,
know if
just one.
you can hear me still, or Reema, is it my loss?
No, sorry.
Carry on.
Harsh, we can't hear you.
Hey, Rima. I would like to give you an example of hyper-personalization, including using technology. You have people with similar skills who are kind of mapped to a particular role, right? That's how it typically happens, especially in IT services organizations. So what we did was we brought in a concept called success profiles, which kind of described that role in terms of competencies and what the desired competency level was, and then had employees self-assess themselves, and their managers kind of also then ratified those. And what we did was we actually put these things through a tool which compared people's self-assessed and ratified skills versus the skills that were required of the success profile. And this comparison gave rise to a delta, which was then mapped to whatever learning assets we had put together as a company, whether it was in-house compilation of content or whether it was open courses that we had subscribed to as an organization. So basically what technology enabled was that there was a data set which reflected people's current competency levels. There was a data set that gave what was the desired competency of a particular role, matched them, throw up the delta, which automatically build the learning paths for people. So it was hyper personalized to an individual's need and stated gap against what that person was supposed to do. And we intend to take that to the next level where people can actually take an aspirational role and compare where they are. And that will lead to a learning path that they will need to work on as part of their individual development plans. I think that's one area where hyper personalization has actually worked well for us.
James, just one final question. So the two emerging trends in HR technology are predictive analysis as well as personalization. Anything more that you want to add? And finally, if you could just leave us with the challenges the HR division is facing right now.
Right. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. While digital is becoming the lifeline and HR digitization is really the in thing these days, one of the areas which I think the people dimension is trying to evolve to is marketplaces. This happened in the marketing realm, it happened in the supply chain realm, in the supplier side. Now it is happening on the people side. And when I say marketplaces, it could be in terms of how opportunities are being looked at by employees, an opportunity marketplace, for example. It can be a talent marketplace in terms of how, I mean, Harsh did allude to the gig worker, and I think Kavita or Arun also mentioned in terms of balancing the number of hours that an employee wants to work in one role versus another, or one job versus another, etc. So there can be a talent marketplace in terms of how the talent supply chain evolves, and that is one of the key areas as technology and platform providers we are trying to really look at. How can digital platforms really get personalized to that extent where it becomes a community of employees and people that engage in a marketplace, and organizations derive functional and productive benefits out of such marketplaces. So that's one of those new trends, whether it is opportunity marketplace, talent supply chains. There's a huge emerging area there.
Harsh, Arun, Kavita, Preeti, James, thank you very much for.
I don't know if you can hear me now. Is my voice now coming?
No, we can't hear you. Can the others hear him?
Oh, no, sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
No, we can't hear you.
Okay, hold on. Connect.
Try speaking, Harsh. Maybe it has gotten better now.
Is it better now?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it
Can you
is.
guys hear me now?
Yes.
We can.
Disconnected.
Uh, so can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. And the frame is also better.
Oh, lovely, lovely. I think this network. No, sorry for the inconvenience. I just wanted to make one point here. And the point really is that, the pandemic has made some certain permanent changes in the way we do the HR function. While as HR folks, we have risen up to the challenge, and a lot of my colleagues here have talked about interesting stuff that we have done during the pandemic to really save lives and impact organization performance. But truly, it is redefined how we do HR. Take onboarding. We use AR, VR, the let us go out on blockchain, completely different from what it used to be. When you talk about performance management, for us, it's a monthly, performance evaluation of senior leaders to see whether we are on track. So no longer are those annual matrices valid. If you look at compensation strategies, very different from what it used to be. No longer is your compensation structure fixed and variable. For companies where we are, experimenting with startups, for example, a variable pay or a bonus can be 300% of your fixed. The way you reward and recognize is completely different. Instantaneous gratification is really the need of the hour. No matter if you are a millennial or a baby boomer or a Gen Z, health and wellness has become important. And it's not only physical health, it's also mental wellness. Organizations who go beyond the employee into the houses of the family and beyond the work office hours, into really the holistic, life of an individual or an associate are successful. What I mean to say is, no longer are you saying you're a great employer just because you invest in an employee 9 to 5. Today, with the pandemic, the people function has to do a lot different, a lot better, and a lot more. And the way we define it, Rima, in our organization is human experiences. Moments of truth are always human. All the tools can enable you, but ultimately, you have to deliver those moments of truth. And they have become even more prominent because what defines and differentiate organizations are these moments of truth. And therefore, while I would say the challenge, the pandemic is over, for HR and people, professionals like us, I think the challenge has only begun because the new normal will determine a new way of doing things, especially in the HR field.
Thank you, Harsh, Arun, Kavita, Preeti, James. It's been an extremely rich and insightful conversation on the role of HR, from talent acquisition to employee engagement, how we can assess the productivity and skills through digitization mediums, what the big trends in HR are, and how the role of HR itself has changed to make sure the employee morale is high, it's in step with the company ethos. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Harsh, I'm glad you made it right at least till the end.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank God we have this last thing we
At
can
least you
include.
got the last word.
Yeah. So that will be like a closing comment.
It'll be the closing comment, yeah.
Yeah. So we have to do those two questions because beach mein, when Harsh was dropping out, I think there will be something. It will be hard for us to in the production. So if you could do that for us, and also the earlier one.
Yeah, which was the Kavita's question?
Wait.
Personalization, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And that question which when Harsh dropped out, you switched to James to ask him that.
Okay,
So
okay.
just
I'll ask
start
that.
with James because he answered it properly.
Yeah, yeah.
So those two questions and just do the intro link. End link is fine. Or if you
Huh?
could do the those two questions and just for the safety, the start and the end link.
At the end, वो तो ठीक ही है यार.
ठीक है फर्स्ट वाला हाँ
First भी ठीक है. अभी मैं ये दो क्वेश्चन करती हूँ.
हाँ
ठीक है. James, clearly the role of HR has evolved significantly. It's important for them to build an emotional connect with the employees, making sure they're valued, they understand and appreciate the ethos of the company, that you need to assess the productivity and learning both from home as well as from office, and in a way act as the custodians of their emotional well-being as well, and act as mentors to their entire professional journey. So how can we leverage technology to these HR functions? You spoke briefly about digital tools earlier, but if you could elaborate.
now the Kavita one.
That's an interesting example on how we are using predictive analysis to curb attrition or be ahead of the curve in understanding when an employee is perhaps going to quit. Kavita, any thoughts on how you are using digitization to bring about hyper personalization?
No, can you do the intro please? Like a little bit not sure.
Okay, Baba, it's taking like 1.5 hours. Yeah, thank you. Start. As we move towards the digital business ecosystem where technology takes center stage, we cannot overlook the role of people in the transformation processes. In fact, successful digital transformation hinges equally on managing resources strategically. The unprecedented change driven by technology disrupting business models and changing workplace experience brings HR at the heart of digitization, making them a strategic partner in creating a pool of more agile workforce, leading to better business performance. Hello and welcome to Industry Knowledge Exchange Conclave HR Forum, brought to you by CNBC TV 18, powered by SAP. The topic for today is value proposition for HR digitization and getting it right. Introducing Arun Dinakar Rao, the Chief People Officer at Birla Soft, Harshvendra Soin, the Global Chief People Officer and Head of Marketing at Tech Mahindra, Ms. Preeti Kaul, People and Culture Head at Upgrad, James Thomas, Vice President Success Factors India at SAP, and Ms. Kavita Kulkarni, CHRO, Varrock Engineering Private Limited, and I am Rima Tendulkar from CNBC TV 18.
Perfect. I just need a 15 seconds note. That's it. Thanks, Rima. That would be enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Radhika, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Tell me.
Today's recording was good, बस last में
Yeah,
हर्ष
वो
का
good.
मिला था.
कोई नहीं, वो
So
पैच कर लेंगे.
मैं क्या करूँगा, एक क्वेश्चन था वहाँ पे थोड़ा हर्ष को I'll cut it down because उसका बाद में फीड ठीक नहीं है. बाकी तो पूरा recording अच्छा ही गया.
हाँ. And I think काफी over भी है, तो we have the scope to edit.
Yeah, we have lot of
60
content.
minutes ही चाहिए हमें total.
ठीक है. Momita, I'm ending the broadcast.
Yeah. Okay.